Hello and welcome to Nightmare Masterclass. My name is David Stockdale. I'll be your host on this excursion into the dark unknown. You know, we've been enduring a rather disturbing trend in cinema as of late, which is, of course, the increased primacy of franchise films, Marvel, Star Wars, what have you. From the financial standpoint of movie studios, it is increasingly the case that anything that is not a franchise is a financial risk. With this in mind, I've been meaning to highlight some of the more obscure indie films I've seen as of late. In this installment, I'll be talking about a movie called We're All Going to the World's Fair, which premiered at Sundance in 2021. It is the directorial debut of Jane Schoenbrun. Hope I'm saying that right. And I would say it is very impressive for her first feature-length film. The director referred to this project as an emo horror movie, and I think that's a very apt description. This movie initially piqued my interest due to the fairly large discrepancy between the critical consensus and the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm highly intrigued whenever this happens because it means at the very least something interesting is going on. And that is absolutely the case with We're All Going to the World's Fair. It's a low-budget indie horror movie that I believe offers a bit of profound social commentary on niche online subcultures and obviously the alienation of young people in our present moment, and in particular, young people struggling with their identity. I also have to mention the film's soundtrack, which is quite good. It was created by an artist named Alex G. The entire thing is available on Spotify and Tidal, so check it out. The movie has been routinely described as a coming-of-age story, and I think that's something to keep in mind going into this film. If you watch the movie under the assumption that it's going to be a straightforward horror film, you're likely to be disappointed. I think that's primarily what accounts for the discrepancy between the critical consensus and the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. It is not a conventional horror film in any respect. It's more of a character study. There are some fairly long, drawn-out sequences in which it can be said that nothing eventful is happening. I imagine this is a common complaint amongst the film's detractors. However, these sequences give you an important number of details with respect to the protagonist's mindset. If you haven't seen the movie yet, perhaps it would make sense to adjust your expectations. Nonetheless, I really enjoyed We're All Going to the World's Fair, and I think if you're generally a fan of the works I cover on this channel, you're going to, at the very least, appreciate what the film is going for. I'm going to be getting into spoilers from this point forward, so pause this video if you haven't seen the movie and check it out. Its theatrical release has been limited, but if you're near a major city, that might be an option. I ended up renting it on Amazon Prime. The movie starts with Casey, the protagonist, performing a ritual, the titular World's Fair Challenge, in which she repeats a few phrases and pokes her finger. Once the ritual has been performed, it is said that the subject will change in some respect. The exact details vary from person to person. Casey watches a number of videos from people exhibiting their reactions. One participant claims he is unable to feel his body. He slaps himself repeatedly to demonstrate the effect. Another guy appears to start growing scales. He inexplicably starts pulling a roll of admission tickets out of his skin. Another video depicts a guy getting sucked into his computer. It's important to note that these events are all telegraphed to the audience as creative endeavors. The film does not entertain the notion that anything supernatural is happening. As best I can gather, the World's Fair Challenge is a collective storytelling exercise not unlike an ARG. It's clear that the World's Fair Challenge has a large number of enthusiasts, amateur filmmakers, and generally creative people taking part. Here's where things get a little weird. Casey befriends an internet stranger with the moniker JLB. JLB has an obsessive interest in all things related to the World's Fair Challenge. He makes it clear that his channel is strictly in-game. The various interactions between Casey and JLB seem fairly innocuous, although the basic fact that a grown-ass man is interacting with a child over the internet, well, It makes for a rather tense movie-going experience. It's important to keep in mind that when a film depicts something, that doesn't necessarily mean it is endorsing the thing being depicted. In this case, I would argue that the film is supposed to be uncomfortable at times. You're supposed to be worried for this kid, and of course you're supposed to be suspicious of this strange man. And the reason for that has a lot to do with the movie's underlying themes, namely the consequences of the internet in combination with the mass alienation of, well, pretty much everyone, but in particular kids in this contemporary moment. The various references to the World's Fair are generally in line with these themes. The various events that have occurred under the header of the World's Fair over the course of history have been consistently celebrations of modernity. They were exhibitions, demonstrations of our new technological powers. And at the turn of the century, there were a great many innovations. But that was over 100 years ago. It makes sense that a World's Fair in 2022 wouldn't be a singular event per se. Physical, concrete events as such have been outmoded. They don't tend to generate very much attention in our present moment, at least relative to internet spectacles. And that's part of the allure when it comes to the World's Fair Challenge. It invites you to be part of a larger story within the hyper-reality of the internet. And it also makes sense that a World's Fair in 2022 would be oriented towards horror, as opposed to this naive technological optimism exhibited at the turn of the century. The promise of the World's Fair, the idea that technological advances will usher in some kind of fantastical utopian society, this promise has been deferred indefinitely. And instead, we experience the world as a dystopian landscape filled with all kinds of technological horrors. And even the ways in which technology has improved life come at some untold cost, whether it's autonomy or privacy, etc. It's perhaps best to understand this film as an exploration of the manner in which people deal with emotional problems in the digital age. If we scrutinize the two most prominent characters in the work, there's a clear distinction between the respective lenses through which the World's Fair Challenge is perceived. Casey uses the format to explore her inner turmoil in a relatively safe manner. She makes fictional videos which are ultimately rooted in her own experiences. They're semi-autobiographical. Writers do this all the time. It's a healthy way to process your emotions. Conversely, JLB uses the ARG to escape from whatever his personal issues are. He practically obsesses over the fictional storylines within the universe of the World's Fair. He experiences the World's Fair primarily as a fantastical means of escape. And so when Casey's videos start getting a bit too disturbing, a bit too real maybe, it disturbs the immersion for him, and that, I believe, is ultimately what leads him to break character. When it comes to Casey, our protagonist, we don't really get a satisfying resolution. In fact, she says that Casey isn't even her real name. This lack of closure is further telegraphed to the audience whenever Casey says something to the effect of, "Someday I'm gonna disappear, and you're not ever gonna know what happened to me." While this statement provokes concern on the part of JLB, it's important to keep in mind that these words are relayed to us through one of Casey's videos. They may reflect some genuine feeling, but that's all it is, a transitory feeling that has been expressed through an artistic medium. Perhaps it makes sense not to psychoanalyze the protagonist, but rather contextualize her videos as part of a broader creative endeavor. Perhaps we're witnessing a budding film director's very first attempts. It is entirely understandable that a young person with grand creative ambitions might be a little sensitive about how their work is received. And so it makes sense that when JLB breaks character in order to check on her, Casey interprets that as a violation of her boundaries. The ending lends itself to a wide array of interpretations, and while I get the sense that this ambiguity is somewhat grating for mainstream audiences, it's one of the primary reasons I really enjoyed the film. We don't ever really find out what happened to Casey. JLB provides a bookend, if you will. He relays that he met up with Casey in New York City a year after the events previously shown, but we don't really have any reason to believe that this account is genuine. I've given it some thought, and while it's clear that the end of the movie is purposefully ambiguous, it seems to me that the events described by JLB are contrived in order to further his escapist fantasy. That's the most credible interpretation I can think of, at least. And such contrivances are fully in line with what we know about his character. Anyway, I would love to hear what you thought about the movie. If you have a different interpretation, yeah, let's hear it. Leave a comment below. That wraps it up for this installment of Nightmare Masterclass. If you enjoy my videos, maybe think about supporting me on a monthly basis at patreon.com/Nightmare Masterclass. Thank you for watching, and good night.